We honor mothers, and this morning's message is going to be in that theme, that realm, looking at two different mothers. And as I was praying about what to share, the Lord led me to an interesting thought to begin with. Man's best friend, the dog. Has nothing to correlate physically with mothers, but it goes along with the spiritual aspect that the Lord brought. And so I Googled top 10 most dangerous dogs. The pit bull is number one. I thought it was pretty interesting. 67% of human fatalities dealing with dogs, 67% of those fatalities were pit bulls. And the second was then Rottweilers. But pit bulls are so dangerous because they're brave and they're dauntless. And they will take on any opponent. Because it locks its jaws upon the victim and will not let go until it senses death. That's why they're so dangerous. Some say it's because of the jaw power, some of this. It's the fact that it senses when there's life and it senses when there's death. The urgency is there to keep a hold until there is no more life. Pretty interesting. And then I also thought, well, we got to be fair about things. So I looked up the most loving dog. And the first one on the list of most loving dogs were the Labrador. So as we look upon these two, we all have dogs that we love and so forth, and certain breeds that we like better than others, so we could put on any one we want. But these are the two lists that I found most common. Especially for the dangerous wasn't hard. Every site that I went on was the same list. But the most loving dogs, I just went and did a bunch of them and then correlated the ones that were on the top, and Labrador seemed to be on the top of everything. But this morning we want to start off with the pit bull. The spiritually tenacious mother is a force to be reckoned with. That word tenacious in the dictionary means holding fast, apt to retain, cohesive and tough, sticky, persistent. So when you think of the attributes of a tenacious mother, you think of those that have stuck to you, those that have adhered to your heart, brought about change. Matthew, the 15th chapter, the 22nd through the 28th verse. I'm going to read out the Amplified this morning. It says, "And behold, a woman who was a Canaanite from the district came out, and with a loud, troublesome, urgent cry, begged, 'Have mercy on me, O Lord, Son of David. My daughter is miserably and distressingly and cruelly possessed by a demon.' But he did not answer her a word. And the disciples came and implored him, saying, 'Send her away, for she is crying after us.' And he answered, 'I was sent only to the lost sheep of the house of Israel.' And he answered, 'It is not right, proper, or fair to take the children's bread and throw it to the dogs.' She said, 'Yes, Lord. But even the little pups eat from the crumbs that fall from the master's table.' And then Jesus answered her, 'O woman, great is thy faith. Be it done to you for as you wish. And her daughter was cured from that moment. What an awesome portrayal in the scriptures of a tenacious mother. She had a need. And this mother was a pit bull when it come to grasping a hold and not letting go until she received something that she was in need of. She came with a need, and she wasn't leaving. She says that she cried out with a troublesome cry. It must have been so loud and so strange, or that sound that, you have certain sounds that just pierce your ears and you're like, ah! And that must have been that to the disciples, because Jesus wasn't going to answer. But the disciples said, hey, she's bothering us. She's crying after us. Of course, what they say, they were meaning fix it. This is the problem, fix it. Well, he thought he was going to fix it. She was not of the Jewish household. So on. But she just wanted things to be made right. As I looked upon this, I thought, each one of those disciples learned one thing, or two things. A mother's love cannot and should not be overlooked. It's not a thought of trivial matters. And I bet the disciples never forgot that fact. They never forgot about that mother that would not let them alone until they got what she came. She got what she came for. And what's so wild is, here we find a woman that Jesus says, great is your faith. Woman, whatever you ask, it's done. But yet she's not mentioned. There's a lot of things in our life that we have or we're blessed with that we just don't naturally attribute that blessing or that victory or that life to what your mother gave. A lot of things we'll just go through every day, and it's a part of our life because it's been ingrained into us. And I bet you they never forgot that. Her love would not let her do anything else but hang on like a pit bull. Only difference is she hung on until there was life. She grabbed a hold and held that vein, so to speak, and when she started to feel that pulse, that life coming in, then she could sit there and say, thank the Lord. I'm thankful for this tenacious mother. I'm thankful for a tenacious mother that raised me, that was there for me, that regardless of what went on, she knew what was right. And through difficult times, she held on to that which was right and did not let go. I'm here today because of that. A tenacious spirit of a mother will continue to hold on to that which is right until it comes. Do not get weary. There's blessings that come through one that will hold on tenaciously like a pit bull until that victory comes. What a blessing. So we've got the pit bull out of the way. Now we move on to the lovable, docile Labrador. And for this, we can turn to Ruth, the first chapter. Starting with verse number 6. This was the time of after Naomi had gone with her husband and her sons to Moab. And her husband and her sons died. We all know the story. Verse number 6, and she rose up with her daughters-in-law and to return from the country of Moab. For she had heard that in Moab how the Lord had visited his people in giving them food. In other words, the famine had stopped in Israel. Everything was good, so she was headed back. And so she left the place where she was, her two daughters-in-law with her. And they started on their way back to Judah. But Naomi said unto her daughters-in-law, go and return each of you to your mother's house. As I ran across that, I thought, that's awfully interesting. She didn't say go back to her father's house. She said go back to your mother's house. Because here they were grieving widows at that time. Young, grieving widows. She knew that their mothers would be able to console and strengthen and be there to gird them and help them along the way. So she said, go back to your mother. May the Lord deal kindly with you as you have dealt with the dead with me. And the Lord grant unto you that you may find a home and rest, and each in your house of her husband. Then she kissed them and wept aloud. And they said, no, we will return with you to your people. But Naomi said, turn back, my daughters. Why will you go with me? Have I yet sons in my womb, that they may become your husbands? And so we find that the word says that the daughter-in-laws were going with her for a while, but then she said, turn back. But I like that portion of Scripture in verse number 7 says, turn back, my daughters. She never thought of them as daughters-in-law. She thought of them as daughters. She brought in that motherly heart of the love of a Labrador that is faithful and true and is loving and kind. And she wasn't thinking, Naomi wasn't thinking of herself. She was thinking of her daughters-in-law. Go back to your own people, your own household to get because I have nothing to give you. All of her means was now gone. She had nothing to give to her daughters-in-law. She wasn't thinking of herself. She was thinking of the welfare of them. Isn't that like a true mother? Thinking of the welfare of others. Thinking of that place in which was in need of their lives. And we know the story. There were two daughter-in-laws. One went home to be their family in Moab. And one stayed with Naomi. That's why we call it Ruth. The book of Ruth. And so all along the way they went and they finally got to where they were at. In Bethlehem. And so we go to chapter 2, verse 1 and 2. Now Naomi had a kinsman of her husband's, a man of wealth, of the family of Elimelech, whose name was Boaz. And Ruth the Moabitess said unto Naomi, Let me go into the field and glean among the ears of grain after him whose sight I shall find favor. And Naomi said, Go, my daughter. I thought how cool this was, because Ruth was a widow just like Naomi. But Ruth still had the love and the obedience like a daughter. No matter how old, there's still that obedience like a daughter. She said, Let me go into the field and glean. Let me go get something for us to eat, for us to sustain us. Because Naomi was old, she couldn't go do that. And I thought, this is a wonderful illustration for us older children. Regardless of how old we get, there still needs to be that respect. There still needs to be that thing where there's that relationship. Give and take. Naomi had a heart for Ruth, like a mother. They had a lot of things shared in common, like mothers and daughters do. And this was no different. And what was so cool about the whole thing is both of them received the benefits. Both of them had the benefits of that relationship with each other. And so we go on, and then down in verse number 17. It says, So she gleaned the fields until evening. And then she beat out what she had gleaned, and it was about an ephah of barley. And she took it up and went into town, and she showed her mother-in-law what she had gleaned. And also she brought forth and gave her food that she had reserved after she was satisfied. And her mother-in-law said unto her, Where have you gleaned today? And where did you work? Blessed be the man who noticed you. So Ruth told her of him whom I worked today as Boaz. And Naomi said unto her daughter-in-law, Blessed be he of the Lord, who has not ceased his kindness to the living and to the dead. And Naomi said unto her, The man is a near relative of ours. I thought, wow. Here's Naomi, whose only relationship to Ruth was tied to her child, her son. But that son is dead. So she really has no living tie, so to speak, to Ruth. But she says she is a near relative of ours. So see, she never excluded her from the family tree. And she shared this salvation experience with Ruth. Because Boaz was the kinsman redeemer. The redeemer that was going to lift that family up from the place that it was. To the place of greatness, to the place of victory, to the place of supply. And all the different things that Boaz, the redeemer, meant for her. And what was cool was, it wasn't even a part of Ruth's life. Amen. But yet, Naomi said, there's a salvation experience that I want to share. Oh, what a great place that is. And what a victory that is in our life. That we can share the kinsman redeemer with our own who need it the greatest. And it goes on and says, one who has the right to redeem us. And Ruth the Moabitess said, He said to me also, Stay close to my young men until they have harvested the entire crop. And Naomi said to Ruth, It is good, my daughter. for you to go out with his maidens, lest any other field you may be molested. So she kept close to the maidens of Boaz, gleaning until the ends into the barley and the wheat harvest. And she lived with her mother-in-law. How cool. All on the way, here we have Naomi speaking words of life continually into Ruth's life, into that blessed life, into that heart that was not of the household of Israel. Not a part of our life, but it was a part of God's life and God's plan and God's way that brought about this love that continued to pour out and pour out and pour out. And you see the blessings of the Lord as Boaz instructed his people, his reapers, to just drop the grain. If you read the story, it's a place where he's sitting there saying, you know what? I don't care about the harvest as much as I do about being that redeemer, that giver of life. And so they dropped extra kernels and piled it up so that Ruth could come along and package that up and have the supply that was needed. And how cool it is that God sees the apparent need and he sees the future need as well. And he supplies every single way along that way in the blessing of that community that was there within the kinsman redeemer. And she continued to pour out those words of wisdom. For in Ruth, the 3rd chapter, starting with verse number 1, it says, Then Naomi, the mother-in-law, said to Ruth, My daughter, shall I not seek rest or a home for you, that you may prosper? And now is not Boaz with those maidens you were our relative? See, he is winnowing the barley tonight at the threshing floor. Wash and anoint yourself, therefore, and put on your best clothes, and go down to the threshing hole. But do not make yourself known to the man until he has finished eating and drinking. But when he lies down, notice a place where he lies, and then go and uncover his feet and lay down. And he will tell you what to do. And Ruth said to her, All that you say to me, I will do. Out of love and wisdom, the Lord blessed this great example of what a mother's love can endure. She had to endure the loss of her husband. She had to endure the loss of her 2 sons. She had to move from a strange land in Moab back to Bethlehem with no way of supply, nothing there, and no promise of anything anywhere else. But she knew the blessings of the Lord were in Israel, and so she ran back to her home. And the blessings of this love endured was not just living within her own means or living in her own household. It was the blessings that were to come that would be even greater than that which could ever be done before. Because here we are, a setup, so to speak, of the kinsman redeemer with Ruth. And as we read on, then they get married. He buys that, he redeems her husbandry from all the others. And God blesses them. God blesses Naomi with a grandson. When in true fact, it's only partial grandson because Ruth's not hers. So, God blesses her with the full fold of that which was only half thereof, of the kinsman redeemer, relative of Naomi's husband. See, she's not even part of this either. But God blesses in the favor and gives her a grandson, Obed. So, that's great. But the importance is not Obed's name, but who he was. For Obed was the father of Jesse. And Jesse, the father of David. And David, the lineage of Jesus. So we see the process in which God had brought Naomi's love, enduring through Ruth, to the kinsman redeemer Boaz, to the place of victory in all of this. How it comes about. Her love flowed as a mother to those she was not even a mother to. That was amazing. So that just tells me that a mother's heart, a mother's love endures and flows even when the motherhood stops. In the body of Christ, there's many whose hearts can be changed and much can be accomplished because of a loving, faithful heart that says, I don't care what you were called. This is who you're called in my household, in my frame of mind, in my heart. A mother's love goes far beyond what is written down on paper. What is written down as far as a maternal love for this child and this child and this child, and when that child's grown and so forth, then the love stops. No. God puts that mother's love into hearts that can be that mother, and it flows, and it flows, and it flows. And it is that sticky application of that love in the hearts of many, many people. Because we don't know who is going to be what in the days to come. Should the Lord tarry, there is a new generation that must rise up and take the reins, so to speak, of the Church of Jesus Christ. And what it is, or who those are, only the Lord knows. God didn't sit there and say, okay, there's got to be this, so there's got to be this, so there's... He just let it flow. And He brought it about because of the mother's love. Wouldn't it be awesome when we're with Jesus? For Him. When we're standing before Him, for you mothers. For Him to say, well done and good and faithful pit bull. That when it was hard, you grasped a hold and didn't let go until there was life. No matter how long it took, you were there, grasping a hold of that life. And because of that love that poured out, look what went from that point on for eternity. All that come behind us find us faithful. I think it's the same way with mothers. All that come behind will find that love trail flowing. That's the blessing of a godly mother. A mother that is full of God's love that will transform the world in which we live. You have done it. My challenge for you today is continue to do it. Because there's a generation that's coming that needs it, that needs it, that needs it. Lord Jesus, I thank you for our mothers.